Good evening, peeps. So I'm here with Ben.
Hello.
And I thought I'd find a little like quiz kind of thing for us to do. So this is, we're not going to do all 100 because we'll be here till next week, but this is essentially how well do you know me questions about couples and friends. And I'm like, well, we're a couple.
We're both.
And we're friends,
Yes.
so we can answer all of these. We're gonna randomly generate some questions and then answer them and see whether we know enough about each other. I'm gonna do this on a point system, so if you get it right, if we get the same answer, then we get a point. If we don't, we don't get a point, and then we'll just cumulative total. I'll work it out in editing. It's fine. Where do I want to live for the rest of my life?
Do we actually know the answer to this question? Because my answer to this question, I know what I would say if I was asked this question about me.
I was just gonna say, I think it's a cheesy answer.
Go
the
on.
one I'm thinking of.
Go on.
So I was gonna say, for me, it would be as long as I'm with you.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Fine.
That is exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, I never would have envisioned living in a tiny town in Devon for as long as I have.
No.
But I certainly don't dislike living here.
No.
But yeah, we talked about this in the past,
Yeah.
haven't we? About saying that it doesn't really matter where we end up. The fact that we can live together is the most important thing. And I still believe that. Absolutely.
Indeed. Do I have any morning rituals?
Okay, so the thing that I initially thought of immediately was you're a morning showerer.
I am.
So you tend to shower in the morning.
Yeah.
But I also thought fairly soon after that you have to spend at least probably 20 to 25 minutes checking on your phone and seeing what you've missed over the course of the evening.
Yeah, like I have this thing where I wake up and I'll generally think, oh, well I must have missed something really exciting.
Yeah, to the point where this morning I was vacuuming the house, and it wasn't until I was taking the recycling out so I could vacuum the house, and it wasn't until I was doing that I was like, oh, Blue's gone for a shower. Knowing Blue, they're probably still looking through their phone half undressed and haven't actually got in the shower yet. I wonder if I can get in there and vacuum the bathroom before they go in the shower and get the floor all wet. As it happened on this occasion, you had actually gotten in the shower by this point. What about me? What's my morning ritual? You should know this. Although to be fair, you're normally in bed for most
You
of it.
always put in your lenses.
Not always.
Oh yeah, apart from when you're wearing glasses, damn. You always clean your teeth.
I have a very set in stone morning routine on days that I work, so I always set my alarm 25 to 30 minutes before I need to leave the
Then
house.
you have breakfast.
No, my morning routine is get dressed first of all, then breakfast, then depending on how long I'm in work for, I make lunch if I need to, then I come upstairs and I do brush teeth, use the loo, lenses in, and that's kind of my morning routine. At some point I always check the temperature as well. At the moment it's first thing when I get up because I need to know whether I need to put a shirt on under my work shirt, but normally it's just before I leave because then I know whether I need a coat, and if so, which of my coats I need to walk to work in.
So yeah, I think I did terribly that. But then I am normally asleep when you get up, so I'm not.
Yeah, which is better. And to be fair, I would rather you were asleep at 7 a.m. I would rather I was asleep at 7 a.m. The only reason I'm up is because I get paid to be in work.
Who is my main role model? Who do I usually look up to?
Okay, so from a music perspective, I would say Owl City.
Okay.
In terms of style and in terms of the way that he writes songs, because I think you and him are both quite, well, I say quite, I think you and him are both very creative with your lyrics, and you know, you don't always go down the obvious routes of stuff, and you've both done some quite out there and interesting things. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think you've ever done anything quite as out there as Dental Care or
No.
Rugs From Me to You. But yeah, I think that would be the person who I believe that you would look up to as someone you would want to emulate. Like, I think there are other people that you have high opinions of,
Yeah.
but in terms of a role model, that's who I would pick for you.
I find you interesting in this regard because I don't know about my role models. Like, so my first thought was literally someone Pokemon themed or Nintendo themed, and then I was like, that's possible. Your parents.
Yeah,
I would.
would.
Probably your biggest role models in
Yeah,
your life.
if I'd answered this question about myself, I would have said my gut instinct. I would have said my mom, but I think my parents is actually better because I want to ideally be, and I'm not saying either of my parents don't have the thing that I'm not immediately going to associate them with, but I would aspire and want to be like the wacky, zany, out there, fun-loving persona that my dad has, but also with the maturity and the wisdom and the groundedness and the perception that my mum has. And like I say, they both have moments when they can do the other thing, and I would never say either of them aren't the thing that I associated with the other parent. But yeah, I think
they're like epitomise that.
Yeah, in an ideal world, I would like to be somewhere between the two, like able to shift between modes when needed.
I'm gonna read this one out because it's hilarious, but it's not a question that I'm gonna answer. Have I ever kissed anyone of the same gender romantically?
Okay, for you, I would probably say no.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I've never kissed someone who's non-binary.
Or at least not that you've known about.
But you definitely have. Ah, this one's nice. What do I love most about my job? I would say for you, the people and
Yes.
the customers and being able to help people.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what I like. I like the interaction, and I like solving people's problems. And I've said it many times, but it's one of the reasons why I don't want to do management in my current job, because doing management in the job that I do at the moment essentially takes me away from everything that I enjoy about that job.
Yeah.
So, although I could do it, and I know I could do it, and people have asked me why I'm not doing it, it's just not what I want to do as a person. I think for you, the thing you enjoy most about your job is the requirement to learn as much as you possibly can about the latest tech, because that's something that you're obviously interested in anyway, and the fact that you are expected to know all this information about what the latest iPhone has that the previous ones haven't, what the difference is between a Samsung and a Sony, for example, which was something that actually came up in conversation in a friendship group recently. The fact that you're expected as part of your job to know about this stuff essentially gives you, I won't say an excuse because you don't need an excuse, but it gives you permission to spend time looking into and researching all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I was also thinking the problem solving aspect of everything, just being able to work around, because for me it's not necessarily the people, like I don't hate people, but that's not as passionate for me as can I solve their problem, if that makes sense. I mean, I'd always want to be polite and kind like their main motivators, but I think what I love most about my job is the field that it's in, so yeah. What would I hate to have for a job? Spider tamer?
I was going to say anything that involves being in regular, planned, close contact with spiders. What would you hate to have for a job? I think something that involved a lot of maths.
Okay, yeah.
And that's not because you can't do it, but I think it's because you would feel under a lot of pressure to be better at it than you feel like you are and you're capable of being.
Yeah.
So I think anything like in banking or accountancy or architectural stuff like that, anything that required you to have a knowledge, an above average knowledge of maths. Because like I say, it's not that you can't do it, but I think you would feel a lot of pressure, and I think you would feel expectation to be better at something that you personally don't feel you're the best at.
for you, I was thinking a small office cubicle where all you do is fill in paperwork or laminating
No.
all day,
No.
every day.
No.
Would be
I would
like
rather-
an idea of hell.
I would rather be homeless.
Do I usually like to plan more than improvise, or the other way around?
No, I think you're a. I've just decided I'm going to do this, therefore I'm going to do it immediately with no thought to the consequences. kind of
See,
person.
I think I'm in the middle of this. I don't think I'm one or the other. I don't plan incessantly. Planning is more your thing. But I think I tend to plan that day, if that makes sense. So I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I really fancy doing that, which I suppose is improvising. But then I'll be like, it's not just the first thing that pops into my head, generally.
Yeah. Whereas I get nervous if I don't know exactly what's going to happen and in what order, particularly on like holidays and days outs and stuff, which is weird because they're the times where you're supposed to be a bit more kind of, oh yeah, you know, just go with the flow sort of thing, and I can do that, but I like to know what we're going to do and what the general aim
Yeah.
of that day or that activity is, you know, because for example, if we are doing a theme park holiday, let's say we're going to Germany and we're going to go and visit a bunch of different theme parks, which is something I'd love to do someday. If I had in my head, right, on Monday we're going to Europa Park and we're going to spend we're going to spend a night there, 2 days, and we're going to do the park over 2 days, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. Once we get into the park, then we'll go with the flow from there. Or for the first day, we'll try and hit all the major attractions, or we'll go around this half first. The second day, I would be a lot more kind of, okay, let's see what happens, let's see how busy it is, let's see what we want to do again, and catch up on the stuff we've missed. You know, and then we might say, okay, we're going to spend the Wednesday travelling to another park. If we pass anywhere that looks interesting on the way, maybe we'll stop off. So I wouldn't have a concrete plan, but I'd still have an objective for that day, which is to get to where we're going, sort of thing.
See, I think I'm the same in that regard. Like, I wouldn't want, like, generally, things I will plan are, I'll generally ask what we're doing for dinner or what we're doing for lunch. And, like, yeah, like, you, I like to have an objective. I don't want to walk around aimlessly because, yeah, I just don't like doing that.
No.
What is my biggest pet peeve?
Your biggest pet peeve?
I was going to say, yours is dithering, I think.
So there's two things that fall into the category of dithering that I absolutely cannot stand. One of which is, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? Oh, I don't really mind. What about you? Oh, I don't really mind. At that point, I have to step in and say, right, we're doing this.
We
you
have
know,
to do
we're
something.
doing this and then doing this, because I can't stand here for 20 minutes while no one comes to a decision.
Whereas I am very
that
much
bugs the
that
hell out of
person
me.
who is like, I don't mind.
And the other thing I can't stand with relates to dithering, and unfortunately you do this quite a bit, is, okay, let's go and do such and stuff. Yeah, okay. 20 minutes later, are we going to actually do that now? Oh, sorry, I got distracted. And that bugs me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have other pet peeves. I think that's quite a good one for me though. I don't know what, I think yours would probably be the attitude of certain people, particularly as it relates to I'm going to call them isms in general and ismistic stereotypes. So sexist stereotypes, racist stereotypes, gender role stereotypes, etc., etc. Anything that reinforces any of those, I think, is one of the things that you hate most about humanity.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's literally, that covers everything from something as throwaway as saying the wife to something as awful as something I'm not even going to mention because it's not worth saying on camera, and I would hate myself for saying it, but literally from even the little tiny things like the wife to much bigger things that everybody should be concerned about.
Because I think those idiosyncrasies, if you fancy, are the things that lead to the bigger things. Like if you can casually just throw in there, oh, her indoors is a classic one that I hear occasionally, and I'm like, it's just that kind of throwaway thing that you might not think about, but I think it just proves that we're not where we entirely want and need to be with this. Do I like listening more than talking, or the other way around?
Oh, that's a good question, because I think you're good at both. And I think you're very good at having an opinion, but I don't think you are the kind of person that has to blurt out their opinion in every conversation, regardless of whether or not it's been asked for. So I would say, I don't know which you enjoy more, but I'd say you're very good at both.
Okay. It's interesting because I think I enjoy listening more than talking, only for the fact that, like, for example, when I'm on camera, I can't always articulate what I mean in my head, so I end up rambling or saying and a lot. So for me, I'm okay with talking as long as I have planned it. I'm getting better at improvising it, but I'm not the best. You, I think, are more of a listener. 100%.
Yeah, I would say as much as I do tend to get excited, particularly when the topic of conversation is something that I'm really interested in, I am a reactive conversationalist. Like, for example, when I'm at work and I work on the checkouts, I won't say if I have my way, but if I'm leading the conversation will be, hello, how are you today? Then nothing, and then that's such and such. Do you have a club card? Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of my conversation. If they start talking to me, more than happy to continue and talk to them. But I'm a reactive conversationalist, and in the same manner, I would rather someone, if they have a problem that they feel I would be able to help with, come up to me and say, can I ask your advice on this? Rather than me go up to them and say, here's some free advice for you.
Yeah, you see, I'm the same in that aspect. What is my number one favourite restaurant?
Oh boy. Can I pick all of them? Can I pick McDonald's, KFC and Pizza Hut?
I mean, I know which one of those I would pick for myself out of those three.
Is it KFC?
No.
Well,
I think my favourite food is pizza. So for me, anything. So Pizza Hut would be my first choice. If I wanted something, like if I'm just on the way somewhere and I'm like, oh, I'm hungry, then it would be Mackey's or KFC.
KFC.
Or like, yeah, I don't mind. Like, I love those places too, but I would pick Pizza Hut if I had the money to, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want a sit-down experience or a fast food, I don't know, but Pizza Hut would be my number one. And you're blinking at me, so I'm just gonna stop and start this again. See, I'm still thinking.
I'm curious.
Favourite restaurant would probably be like a TGI's in America, or maybe Frankie and Benny's.
Yeah, because my thinking for this was I don't have an answer to this question. I love eating out and I love going for a proper sit-down meal, whether that's at Pizza Hut or whether that's at somewhere a bit fancier. I really don't mind, but I love the experience of going and sitting and having dinner out. As long as there's something I like on the menu and it's a place with a decent atmosphere, I really don't mind where that happens.
Yeah.
It could be the Wetherspoons down the road, that is fine by me. It could be a really, really fancy restaurant, as long as someone with money is paying and I get enough food and there's something I want there. That would be great, but you know, I don't have a number one favourite, I don't think.
No, that's fair. Ooh, what is your favourite dessert? Well, your favourite dessert, I'm going to say cheesecake.
Love cheesecake. Absolutely
Or
love
cheesecake flavoured ice cream. That would also be a
Yeah.
plus.
No, I really like cheesecake. I think that's a good choice. If I can have it with ice cream, that's great. I missed the sundae that Frankie and Benny's did for a while, which was like a cheesecake sundae. It was so good. Your favourite dessert? I mean, I'm tempted to say, I don't know if it counts as a dessert, but I'm tempted to say like pancakes or crepes or something.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Because that's something that we don't make often because it's a bit of a faff.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that you get really enthusiastic about. And if ever we're passing somewhere and we're out that does pancakes and crepes, the chances are you're more likely to get something from there than to just walk past, I think. Regardless of how recently it's been since we've eaten or whatever.
I think this is my thing with dessert, is I usually like chocolatey things, so crepes work. It doesn't matter how much I've eaten, I always seem to make room for dessert. What was my favourite subject in school? So I'm going to say yours was English.
Yes, I think that's fair. I really enjoyed English at all the stages I did it. Because I like English in primary school because it's quite, although you're still learning the basics of it, I think it's quite creative, and I think that is encouraged. Secondary school, I found English enjoyable. I was lucky in that I had a really, really great English teacher at GCSE, who basically, the way I like to describe her is she terrified the class into getting the grades that they were capable of. So I came out with 2 A stars at English GCSE in language and literature. She never took our books in once to mark over the course of 2 years because she knew she didn't have to, that we were, you know, if we were in her lesson, we were on the right track sort of thing.
You were engaged.
And then when I actually took English literature at A level, and I had 2 fantastic teachers for that as well. And one of the jokes I used to say is that basically all of the English departments in my secondary school, basically all of the female teachers chose to use their title as Ms. MS, and it wasn't until I found out why that title even exists that I was like, okay, knowing what I know now about these teachers, this makes complete sense. Honestly, the amount of feminist literature we went through was just insane, but it was really, really enjoyable. I like the creative aspect of English. I love creating stories, characters, fictional scenarios, and as much as I don't do it, I also love dipping into the works and the worlds of other people. It's something that I don't do so much nowadays. For one reason, is because I don't know where I would start. You know, I feel like I've got to this stage of my life now where I'm like, where would I actually begin if I wanted to start reading stuff? What would I even be interested in these days? But yeah, I really enjoyed English. I also really enjoyed Spanish when I was at school. That was something I did I started in year 8 and I did all the way through to A level again. And again, just had a succession of really, really great teachers. In fact, I say a succession. Of the 6 years I did Spanish, I had the same teacher for all but one of them. And she was brilliant, and I still have so many great memories of her. Your favourite subject in school? Blimey. See, I think you have quite a broad range of interests, and I can see you being interested in something a little bit out there. Like, no, not necessarily out there, but I know for a fact that you did environmental studies, and I could see you being quite interested in that, even though it's something you haven't really pursued since. I mean, the typical answer, I think, would be something like IT, something that you have the potential to be very good at. But yeah, I don't know what I would pick.
I think, again, so my favourites in school were English. I loved English. IT. I loved science.
Not PE then?
No, funnily enough, not PE. I think PE was one of my least favourite. It's bizarre though, because like music and performing arts were not like my biggest things in school. Like, I enjoyed them, but I don't always think sometimes that teaching them in school is always the right way to go about it. Like,
yeah, like music, for example. It's one of those things where if you want to do music, there are so many music clubs where you can learn instruments and you can literally just go to and play that instrument and learn songs for an hour, you know, which are more interesting to people who are interested in that instrument than just music lessons.
And I was going to say the problem with music lessons is if you're not interested in music at all, you don't necessarily see the value of that subject, particularly when you're 11.
I think my other thing as well is music must be such a hard subject to teach, because what do you teach?
It's so broad, yeah.
It's such a huge topic, and you say music to most 10 and 11-year-olds and they think they're going to be learning about Ariana Grande and Ed Sheeran, etc, etc. They don't really care about the way music is put together. They just want to listen to pop songs, you know. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's really difficult to decide on a syllabus I think it would be really difficult to decide on a syllabus that actually teaches something that people want to learn and is still going to benefit them.
Difficult for me because, like, for me, you could absolutely teach me composing, and I love that. But it's not a skill that I think most people are gonna encounter in their life. Like, a lot of people do not write songs. And you know, I don't. One of the things we learned to do was write score, so compose using a music program called Sibelius. But essentially, that's notation, and I'm like, I've never composed music in that way since, because I'm not scoring for instruments.
No.
So it's interesting because do you teach like the appreciation side of things? So like listening to classical pieces of music and identifying instruments and leitmotifs and like that whole thing. So you do like the sound recognition stuff, or you go down the composition route and it's just really vague. Like you're not that
I think appreciation would actually be a really good thing, really good way of doing it. Would be to look at loads of different genres and not necessarily go into detail, but like recognize themes and
like
motifs and whatever of that genre, and then you're giving children freedom to encounter music that they wouldn't necessarily encounter otherwise, which they may have no interest in whatsoever, or they may listen to and think, oh yeah, I really connect with this. You know, because how many kids growing up are going to be exposed to classical, jazz, country, etc., etc. You know, they're probably going to have the radio on and they're going to listen to pop, a bit of R&B, a bit of rap and hip hop,
or whatever their parents will listen
whatever their parents listen to. So they might just be bombarded with 80s and 90s stuff. They might have totally rock and metal growing up around them. They might listen to reggae and nothing else. But, you know, having those different genres around them, I think would be a really cool way of doing it.
Who was your favourite cartoon character?
Your favourite cartoon character? The one that came immediately to my head was Sylvester, as in Aunt Tweety, simply because you have the cuddly toy of him.
It's one of my favourites. I think him or Bugs Bunny. More recently, I think Homer. But I love animation, so that's kind of a hard question. Yours? God. No, I want to say, like, the cartoon I watch all the time. I want to say someone like Dick Dastardly or Muttley or Scooby-Doo.
I have many great memories of Dick Dastardly, mainly because I think the reason, or one of the reasons we encountered Wacky Races was through my granddad, who was a fan of stuff like that, and he always used to, and it didn't matter what it was, Granddad would always pretend to sympathise and empathise with the bad guy, whether it was Dick Dastardly, whether it was Wolf in Gladiators. He would always be on the side of the bad guy, and he would always be like, oh, you know, they have such a hard time, they're always really hard done by, I think they should get what they want, and you know, and I have so many great memories because of that. I wouldn't say necessarily Dick Dastardly was always my favourite character. Like, I tended to connect with, and you can make of this whatever you like, but I tended to connect with, like, Penelope Pitstop was my favourite of the Wacky Racers. Meg was one of my favourite characters in Hercules, along with, I mean, I don't mind Hercules, nothing against the guy, but Meg and Hades were always my favourite characters in that film. So yeah.
I think I always used to sympathise with, like, characters who were at least outwardly appearing female. That's something I noticed growing up, and most of my friends were as well. So.
See, I can't say that. I was thinking about this recently, and until I got to university, I would say all of my close friends, with the exception of Lauren and Bethan, all of my close friends, particularly from school, were male, and I didn't have many close friends, but I had like really good friends that I was close with, even though it was only one or two, and they always tended to be male up until I got to uni, for whatever reason.
Did I have any imaginary friends?
I don't know. Did you?
In a sense I still do. In a sense I still have a whole other universe of people who
I guess so.
exist but only in my head. But I don't remember really having. I used to make things up all the time. But I never would specifically be like, oh, I'm playing, like I would teach an imaginary class and that kind of stuff. But I would never, like, I would never play with imaginary friends, if that makes sense. Not in that sense.
I don't think I did either. I had two brothers who I used to do everything with when we were younger. You know, and it's interesting that I've always kind of done or associated different things with my two brothers. Like, a lot of the time, because me and Tove are so close age-wise, we would usually, if we were playing something two-player, it would be me and Tove, particularly when we were younger. And then me and Seb would do the more kind of creative, imaginary stuff together, possibly because he was younger, and so, you know, he would have had more of a kind of a desire to do the whole, you know, teaching the imaginary class, for example, sort of thing. And that was stuff that I used to do with Seb. And I also had friends at school who I used to see quite frequently. And yeah, so I don't think I did either.
No. What was my favourite movie?
You have quite a few favourite movies. I would say you recently mentioned a few times about Cinderella being one of your favourites.
Yeah.
When you say that, do you mean like the new version?
Both.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Because you've never like kind of clarified which one you talk about. You say Cinderella, and to me, I assume you're talking about the newer one, even though we don't. Well, I haven't seen it and don't really have any desire to. But I assume you're talking about the newer one, just because I remember you raving about that.
So, I was going to say, the newer one for me and the older one I like for different reasons. Much in the way like I love Snow White the film, but I wouldn't compare it to something made in 2021. But yeah, no. Cinderella 2015, I think it was 2015.
I think you're right.
Taught me, there's one specific line that is like, have courage and be kind. And I think that's where I kind of started realising who I want to be as a person. Like, I'm not always, and I think always kind, and I think we do things out of fear sometimes that sets us back, but the person I want to be is essentially who she is. She has such a positive attitude going into absolutely everything that it's like, I want to be this person. I don't know for you, because you're not really a movie watcher.
No, I'm not, but there's some films that I really connect with, like Hercules. Disney Hercules was always my favourite film growing up. And it still holds a very special place in my heart, to the point where I think we have it 3 times on DVD, all of which were mine. But you know, there's other films, like I really enjoyed Frozen and Frozen 2, and I was really concerned about Frozen 2 because I like Frozen so much, and I was like, I don't see what they can do that would add anything.
Yeah.
But you know, I remember coming out of that cinema that we watched it in and being like, I don't think this film needed to happen, but I think the universe actively benefits from it having happened.
Yeah.
I really love those 2 films. Big Hero 6 has a special place in my heart for all kinds of reasons, but I can't watch it
No, not
at the moment. I really want to get to a place where I can watch it again, because like I say, it has a really special place in my heart. Outside of that, there's a couple of random films that I really like from having watched growing up. I think Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original, Gene Wilder is so good as Willy Wonka, and that's probably one of my most quoted films, because there's a couple of lines that he uses in that film that I quote all the time. Bedknobs and Broomsticks with Angela Lansbury, love that film. The Dark Knight, and also to a lesser extent Batman Begins, only because I think I've only seen that once, whereas Dark Knight I've watched many, many times. Bruce Almighty, another film I quote all the time. The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2, love both of those. So yeah, I think I would still probably say Hercules is my favourite, but I have although I'm not a massive film person, I tend to go back to the same ones because I love them so much.
Do I want to live overseas?
So I don't think you would be opposed to the idea.
There are places I could see myself living.
Yeah, but as with many things, I think it's more of a I like the idea without having to consider all the things involved with that.
I think for me as well, it's very much I would be happy where I lived given the circumstance. So the only reason I would move would be because of my job. So if I got a job and it was based in Canada, say, then I wouldn't mind moving. But I wouldn't specifically move to Canada.
But
for
by
example,
but
to
by the same token,
start a new job.
But by the same token, you wouldn't apply for something if it was going to result in you moving to certain countries. Like,
No.
you wouldn't rule out applying to something in, let's say, Canada, just because it was in Canada. But if it was in, let's say, Poland, for example, you probably would rule out.
And yeah, I was going to say, and that's my thing. My thing is, recently I've kind of learned that it has to be an English-speaking country because I don't know any other languages well enough, and I hate going to places and being like, I'm that ignorant English
Brit.
person, yeah, who doesn't know how to like even ask for simple things, and I don't find languages easy to learn. Like, I can learn bits and pieces, but I've never learnt enough of a language to build sentences. And as someone who values that in English, I hate not being able to do that in another language.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, English is it may not be spoken by the most number of people
But
in the
it's a
world,
world
but
language.
it's a world language.
And
It's spoken by probably a percentage of the population in most countries. So we, as primary English speakers, don't need to worry about learning anything else because there is this expectation that everyone else will know our language.
Yeah.
So we get really frustrated. And I say we, I'm not talking about most of the people I know,
No,
but
we.
the British public in general get really frustrated when someone comes to our country and can't speak the language, and we feel like it's our God-given right that everyone should be able to come here and communicate to us in our language. But there are so many people who move overseas to, like, France, Spain, whatever, have no interest in learning the language, and they move to a community of other Brits who've done the same, and it's basically just Britain part 2 or part X or whatever.
And I think this is the thing, like, I get why a lot of other countries use English as an international language because it's the most readily available to communicate in. Like,
Yeah.
you're more likely, like you say, to find someone who can speak English.
And if you look at the major world powers as well, like, it's a consistent language across, for example, the UK, the US, and Canada, 3 big, powerful countries.
Yeah, and then you've got, like, Australia and New Zealand. You've got a lot of countries that speak English. So they may not be like the biggest in terms of population, but they make up a fair big chunk of the world.
Yeah. Interestingly, to go along with that, I think that the countries that speak English are also the ones that think everyone else should follow their example, sort of thing. And I'm not always saying that's a bad thing, because one of the things I really value about this country is that we are very good in terms of our regards to, you know, equality and fairness in the law and stuff like that. And so I'm not saying it's a bad thing that we want to be an example, but I think the fact that it's automatically assumed that what we're doing is right and therefore everyone else should also be doing it isn't. It's not always as cut and dry as that.
Yeah, I think sometimes we still do have this like imperialistic attitude
Yeah.
that we're better than everybody else for no discernible reason, which is a shame. Going back to the question, I don't think you would move given the opportunity. You wouldn't want to.
No.
I don't think you'd directly oppose it if we had to, but it would have to be I had to.
Yeah, if it was actively going to benefit our quality of life in the sense that, for example, one of us got offered a job that was going to make us, for example, loads more money than we were going to earn here and give us a lot more freedom at the same time, then yes, I would definitely support that. But the way I always describe it is, I understand life in Britain, and it's all the little nuances that you don't think about. Like, I understand what time we have lunch, for example. I understand what we pay tax on and how that is calculated in the prices of things. I understand when I do and don't have to pay to see health service workers, etc., etc. And it's the little things like that that I think I wouldn't want to have to learn from scratch again.
I think I'd find that really difficult, and I never want to stop being a British citizen. Like, I don't even know that that's something you can opt out of, but I'd never want to leave this country entirely because, I don't know, I'm used to, like, I've moved around a lot, but I've always come back to Britain and always been like you say, you just understand things. You know when somebody's talking about, like, something and it's small talk, you know that, like, you're not gonna have a huge cultural, like, I don't know, there's not going to be a gap in your understanding or in your humour necessarily, or because I know we're all different, but we're all kind of like, we all are very, very much aware of what Brits do and what Brits don't do. We're not very good at being impolite, apparently, although the number of people that can be quite rude is, yeah, we're not all that nice.
Yeah.
Just most of us.
I love that. We all know we're all very good at being British. I can't believe how fast this year's going by. And have you seen the weather?
Right.
Will we get snow?
Yeah. Yeah. And we love to queue for things.
Oh yes.
And we love our fish and chips. We love our good biscuit.
It's been at least an hour since we had a cup of tea, so that clearly is insane.
Terrible. But then there's some weird, absurd things that people think we do that I've just never understood, like how many of us actually have 11s or afternoon tea.
Or know the Queen. I personally am on first name terms with the Queen, by which I mean I would refer to her as Elizabeth II. She probably would have referred to me as Ben.
No, I'm unfortunate that I don't know the Queen. It's sad, but you know, what you gonna do? Anyway, thanks for watching this really long and rambly video, and now my battery's about to die, so I will see you tomorrow for more fun and excitement. Bye!